working on implementation and practical projects. One of those groups, the thematic groups that I'm involved in, and I'm actually a member of, is the cities one, the Smart, Sustainable and Resilient Cities. And we as a group, and in fact the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, are actually advocating for a specific goal for sustainable cities on the basis that already half the population of the world lives in cities. It's going to be 70% by 2050. More than 3/4 of all the economic development and jobs come from cities. And the idea of a separate goal will be to mobilise and motivate mayors and cities around the world to support sustainable development. Now, as I indicated, one of the key aims of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network is to support the process of developing these goals. And so in June this year, the network produced this action agenda for sustainable development, and that's obtainable on the web. And that comes up with a proposal for 10 sustainable development goals, which are listed there, and 3 targets under each goal. Now, of course, there are many more targets that people might want to see, but the view of the network was that if you have too many targets and too many goals, it becomes too hard to follow. And so they have sought to limit it to 10 goals and 3 targets. And of course, there are other very significant forms of advice that the UN is getting through the high-level panel, which was headed up by the President of Liberia, the President of Indonesia, and the Prime Minister of the UK. Other groups like the Global Compact have also made recommendations. And I think as researchers and as universities, we've got quite a rich array of documents to use as sources for our research and our education on sustainable development. And this is certainly one of them. And I should say that the UN Secretary General, in his report to the General Assembly of September this year, specifically acknowledged the role of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network as a key input into the UN thinking on sustainable development. So that's the first role that the network has had, to advise on the goals. The second is to come up with some practical solutions initiatives, and to do this in collaboration with business. And so here are 4 of the projects that are already underway. The first is a project involving hopefully up to 1 million community health workers in sub-Saharan Africa, working with business to provide IT for those community health workers so that they're IT enabled in tackling issues like malaria and other health issues. There's also a major project in sub-Saharan Africa on energy access with a major European energy utility. There's an initiative in Rio led by the City of Rio on how to make cities, especially fast developing cities like Rio, more sustainable. There's a solutions initiative in Mozambique on how countries with significant extractive industries can themselves extract some benefit from the infrastructure that's built for the extractive industries. And I might say one of the Mozambicans came to Australia and was amazed how little benefit we as a country get from a lot of the mining infrastructure that's going in here. He actually commented on that to me. And in the Mediterranean, they had a group much like this from universities around the Mediterranean, Italy, France, Spain, and they came up with a solutions initiative themselves around plastic marine litter in the Mediterranean, which is actually a big environmental issue. And they are now, as a group of universities and organisations with support from the Italian Navy, surveying the impact of marine litter around the Mediterranean, just as an example of what can be done. Now, one other initiative which Monash is already involved in, which is incredibly exciting, is a deep decarbonisation pathways project. And what this is all about is to say, we know that to have any hope of getting 2 or even 3 degrees, as Bob said, there's going to have to be huge change, and we'll have to completely decarbonise our energy system by 2050. At a global level, there's been quite a lot of work about what might be done across the whole globe, but what this project does has not been done before, which is to bring together teams from each of the 12 major economies to identify what can be done in their country by 2050 to decarbonise their energy system, and to link up those projects across the various countries for the next 4 decades to 2050. And the idea of this is to inform the countries, but particularly to inform the debate at the COP, the meeting in Paris, the COP21, which will be hopefully the meeting countries agree to a post-2020 carbon agreement. And we at the Sustainable Development Solutions Network have been given a role to assist in the French management of that COP21. And I'm very pleased to say that ClimateWorks, which is part of Monash Sustainability Institute, has been asked to do the plan for Australia, which is fantastic. And you can see, I don't know whether you know Anna Scarbeck up there behind the Apple computer, who's the director of ClimateWorks. But that was the initial meeting in Seoul, Korea last month. But I think this is an example of what this can do. This project brought together experts from the 12 major economies, and Monash is at the table, which is fantastic. There's also a major objective for the SDSN in education, and already 100 universities, nearly 100 around the world, have joined, and it's likely that by 2015 there'll be several hundred. And the aim of the SDSN is to support universities to play a bigger role in sustainable development. How do they do that? First, by connecting university faculties together. And last week, and Dave might say a bit of this, last week we were in Malaysia, Monash, led by Sir Bob as co-chair, working with other experts from the Asian countries. So already we're connecting up. Second, by fostering joint research projects. Third, by promoting curriculum development in sustainable development. And fourth, by potentially promoting an online course in sustainable development. This is still at a fairly early stage, but the idea would be for a postgraduate course that would be available for students, particularly in poor countries, that would be much more affordable than the current courses, with the idea that you'd have an international sustainable development course available much more broadly. And already some universities have committed to contributing to that. Just briefly, the organisation of the SDSN, the director is Jeff Sachs from the Earth Institute at Columbia. There's a leadership council, which I'm on, and a secretariat, a number of locations around the world. And then there are regional and national centres for the Sustainable Development Solutions Network. And earlier this year, Monash was appointed as the regional centre for Australia and the Pacific, which was a great announcement. And in fact, the Vice-Chancellor Ed Byrne announced it in Indonesia when he was visiting there earlier this year. And the Indonesian Minister for Research and Technology, who was at the announcement, said that he looked forward to this being a way in which Monash could work together with Indonesia and Indonesian universities on sustainability issues. There is now an Indonesian SDSN branch, a Malaysian SDSN branch, and a Southeast Asian regional centre. And there are centres also established in Korea and a number of other countries. And I was at the launch a few weeks ago of the Indonesian and Southeast Asian centres by the Indonesian president. And the Minister for Tourism and Development in Indonesia, Mari Pengestu, spoke to me about this and said she was very hopeful that the new Monash Indonesia Centre would have as one of its key roles sustainable development and be part of this network approach. As a regional centre, we have a number of responsibilities, and essentially they're to engage in the global discussion on shaping the SDGs, to organise regional conferences on the SDGs, which we have already started, to mobilise other members in the region, and there are 2 other universities in Australia that have already joined, Curtin Centre for Sustainability, and the University of Queensland Centre for Responsible Mining. Also to coordinate policy support to government in our region, and to promote regional solutions initiatives, which we haven't come up with yet, but hopefully out of today we might come up with a few. And I think there are some key benefits for us as a regional centre: the global recognition in representing the UN SDSN in the region, participation in those solutions initiatives, ability to leverage expertise, and the opportunity to leverage our affiliation, hopefully, for some funding. And I guess finally, that for Monash means international partnerships and collaborations, potential for additional international funding, greater impact for you as researchers, and educational opportunities. And all of that has led, which I think Dave's going to talk to a little bit, which is the series of workshops that we've already, you're not going to talk to. Well, I'll mention it very briefly. As an initial project, we have a series of workshops in Australia and in Southeast Asia on the Sustainable Development Goals, working with other universities and experts in the region. And it's already started and it's been very successful to date. So thank you.
Thank you, Professor John Clates. It's my pleasure now to introduce our final presenter for the day. Professor Dave Griggs is a leader in reducing greenhouse gas emissions and delivering solutions to key sustainability challenges. Professor Griggs is the director of the Monash Sustainability Institute and CEO of Climate Works Australia. He's previously held senior positions in the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the UK Met Office, the Hadley Centre for Climate Change, the World Climate Research Programme, the Australian Council of Environmental Deans and Directors, and the Climate Institute Strategic Council. So, Professor Dave Griggs.
Okay, I've got the boring presentation because I don't get to talk about science or research or anything like that. I'm here to just be very practical and talk about what MSI does, to give you an idea of how you can interact with MSI and how, and the role that we try and play in facilitating and coordinating what sustainability work across the university. So what is MSI? We're a cross-faculty institute, so we don't belong to any one of you as a faculty. We report direct to the provost. And our idea, we're there to try and catalyse both research, education, and also to have a real impact in sustainability challenges around the world. We are very interdisciplinary. So within MSI, we have scientists, engineers, social scientists, economists, lawyers, psychologists, a medical doctor. We've just brought on an ethicist as an adjunct. So we are extremely interdisciplinary. There's about 50 of us across MSI and Climate Works. It can include staff and graduate students. And we organise ourselves around a series of programmes. And the basic philosophy is that we have to raise the money to carry out these programmes. And it's our job to try and facilitate and coordinate and bring together researchers from within MSI, but also encompassing researchers from right across the university. So if you add it up, there's many hundreds of researchers across the university already involved in MSI projects. So I'm just going to go very quickly, and I mean very quickly, through these programs, really just headlines at this stage to go through that. So Behaviour Works Australia is at the forefront of behaviour change research. It's going like great guns. It's got core partners which provide core funding. That's Sustainability Victoria, Environmental Protection Agency, the Shannon Company, which is a private sector company, which is now branding itself as a behaviour change company, and the Office of Environment and Heritage in New South Wales, and I think we're just on the verge of signing up THC WorkSafe. We have 13 different projects on a whole range of behaviour change issues, from litter policy to energy use to visitor behaviour to zoos to composting to charity bins and you name it. We host leading behaviour change academics, and if you're on our mailing list, and if you're not, you should be. You'll have heard about all the great world-leading academics that we bring out in behaviour change. The last one being Professor Yuri Nisi, who is just about the world expert on incentives and why they sometimes do and sometimes don't work. We've hosted the Behaviour Change Sustainability Congress, and we're part of a number of federal government grants. You'll notice in the blue boxes, I'm not going to read them all out, but we're very concerned about wanting to make a real impact. So these are just quotes from some of the outside organisations and companies and so on to show the value of what we do for them and with them. So Climate Works Australia is a partnership between MSI and the Maya Foundation. It was established with a $4.6 million grant from the Maya Foundation, which they were so happy they gave us another $1.5 million, so that's good for us. It does a range of projects around trying to transition Australia to a low carbon economy. And John described one of the projects, which is really our first foray into the international sphere in Climate Works, but we've done low carbon growth plans for Australia, showing how Australia can reduce its greenhouse gas emissions at lowest cost. We've done those for various regions in Australia, such as Gippsland and Geelong. We've done assessments of the Australian economy, showing how we're tracking towards a low carbon economy and so on. Climate change, biodiversity and health. This tries to, as it says on the tin, bring together those different disciplines. We held a national workshop at the Population Health Congress, and we published several scientific articles on water insecurity, health, food and sustainability. A new programme for us this year was Economics for Sustainability. We recruited Michael Ward, who is a joint appointment 50-50 between MSI and the Faculty of Business and Economics. So we have joint appointments between MSI and the faculties. And that will bring together, hopefully as a cohort, those environmental economists. Just this week, I think it's been agreed that the Faculty of Business and Economics Centre for, I'm going to get the name wrong, the Centre for Development Economics is now the Centre for Development Economics and Sustainability. And the sustainability element of that will bring together all of the disciplines that we talk about here. So we've had grants, we've done economic studies and valuations of the cities programme, and we've hosted an education symposium on carbon markets. Indigenous communities and climate change, we do a lot of work with Indigenous communities. We've had several projects with the Yorta community in northern Victoria, looking at how we can incorporate Indigenous knowledge into management decisions in forest and river management, how Indigenous communities can adapt to climate change. I'm a member of the National Indigenous Climate Change Committee or Group. We've produced various studies for Rural Industries Development Council on a decision support framework to assess climate change opportunities for Indigenous communities to access carbon farming funding and so on. Monash Water for Livability, a major programme. We had a programme called Water Sensitive Cities, which a lot of them may have heard of, people like Tony Wong, Anna Deletich, Rebecca Brown, from engineering and arts. Coming together in an interdisciplinary programme that won a multi-million-dollar CRC for water sensitive cities, so that span out of MSI to become a standalone CRC, but left behind was a Monash Water for Livability programme, because the CRC will sponsor research, and the Water for Livability programme is the interdisciplinary group drawing in researchers from almost every faculty of the university to carry out that research under the CRC umbrella. Natural resource management in Asia, we do a lot of work, and Tina and Matt sitting in the audience are very heavily involved in this, linking research and policy in Southeast Asian countries. Over $1.3 million funding from AusAid last year, don't think we'll get that again next year, to support multidisciplinary programs, things like Himalayan sourced rivers, avoided deforestation in central Kalimantan, water management in the Mekong, etc. Social and environmental sustainability, a whole range of projects in that area. Social enterprise in Warrnambool, facilitating transport options in rural Victoria, looking into things like homelessness and climate change. Sustainable places, We did a major project for the National Climate Change Adaptation Research Facility, looking at how to help small communities adapt to climate change, and coordinated with state and local governments on a whole range of projects. Bushfire prevention, this is around bushfire arson. We've done work with Crime Stoppers, and the campaign that we co-designed with Crime Stoppers led to an increased reporting of arson in Victoria. Lots of work, as you can imagine, in the media this year, with the New South Wales bushfires, almost constant, I think, reporting in the media and providing expert consultation on the New South Wales bushfires. Soil carbon programme, Tony Patty here and Tim Cavagnaro as was, pulling together from science, from engineering, from arts, all of the different disciplines under Tony and Tim's leadership. We've helped them access funding through the Carbon Farming Fund. We've got them placed on various national committees. I don't know whether it's ever met, Tony, but we actually got you onto the committee, the federal government committee around soil carbon and things like that. New Sustainable Development Programme, this is the one that this is the centre of what we've been talking about today and what Bob's been talking about. This is a $1.5 million grant from the Howard Mitchell Foundation to organise these regional and national workshops around sustainable development and sustainable development goals. Systemic Governance Research Programme, Ray Ison sitting over at the back there in the green shirt leads this programme, looking at a systems approach to a whole range of problems from food in Africa to water in the Murray-Darling Basin. Moving on to our education programs, Green Steps is our education program, training students in sustainability, providing them with internships both at the university and in industry. We've expanded that to the UK for the first time, so we're in Warwick last year, and this year we're running both Warwick and Exeter University in the UK. Jeff Rose is our Education for Sustainability Professor, I think the first in the country. We ran a whole range of programs with the Bachelor of Engineering to embed sustainability into that curriculum. We're doing a whole range of other curriculum initiatives. We've now got an agreed signed-off strategy for education for sustainability at the university. And this just really is a sort of summing up of some of the impact that we have. So we hosted 23 seminars and events last year, gave nearly 260 presentations, 85 peer-reviewed journal articles, book chapters, conference papers, opinion pieces, expert advice on over 90 committees, organisational boards, journals, government processes, and worked with over 180 industry, academic and government partners. And we're here to try and help to bring this together. So I think we're going to break into groups now to discuss some of these issues. But before I do that, are there any questions about any of the presentations that you've heard? We don't want to go into a big debate about sustainable development here, but are there any questions of clarification or information, things that you think we need to clarify before we move into working groups? Okay, we were quick, but we were clear. So that's good. So, now for the fun bit. What we're going to do now is to break up into about 7 groups. And I'm going to have shows of hands to see exactly how we're going to do this. And each group is going to be asked an exam question and given a subject. So the subjects appear on your sheet here. So, and these are crafted around the Sustainable Development Solutions Network tentative prototype goals. And extreme poverty and hunger, and improve agricultural systems, ensure efficient learning for all children, the life and livelihoods, that's education, empower and inclusive production in resilient cities, achieve health and well-being, transform governance for sustainable development, achieve development within planetary boundaries, curb to human-induced climate change, and secure ecosystem services and biodiversity. And then each group, we're going to ask the same question, which is what can current and potential key interdisciplinary research areas that Monash could build on to contribute to addressing the Sustainable Development Goals. So I should just explain a little bit more about what I mean for that. This is not we don't want a catalogue of every piece of research that Monash is doing that's pertaining to any of these goals, because that would be a very long list and it would take far too long to produce. It would be a good idea to produce it, but now's not the time. What we want to do is to ask you to come up with maybe the 3 top areas in Monash where we're already leading, or with a bit of help or partnership or bringing in key expertise could lead in providing a major research focus to address some of these goals. So where is there potential to really scale up, build something that's big, interdisciplinary, focused on achieving some of these goals, so that we can then hopefully pull this team together and go out and try and get this going. So now for the fun bit. How many people would like to go to the first breakout group about poverty, hunger, agriculture, etc.? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-ish. Okay, that's a reasonable number. How about education, learning for children of all ages, and so on? That's quite a big group. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, well, probably not too big. Empower inclusive production and resilient cities. Okay, that's about right. About half a dozen, right? Something like that. Yeah, it's going well so far. Health and well-being at all ages. Yeah, that's about half a dozen as well. This is going far better than I expected. Transform governance for sustainable development. This is amazing. You are so good. This is also about half a dozen. Okay, so achieve development within planetary boundaries, curb human-induced climate change, clean energy for all. Slightly small, only about 4 of you, 5 of you possibly. And how about secure ecosystem services and biodiversity? Yeah, okay, I don't have to do any geoengineering of this yet. All I have to do is assign tables. So, this is where you all get... Sorry, Jackie's calling. Sorry?
These tables 3.
Yeah.
And then have group 1 or tables 2 and 3.
Say that again.